It's kind of like this portal that allows you to open the gates to so many different areas of healing and of rewiring and of expanding and raising your consciousness. The biggest thing it did for me is it created this level of peace and comfort internally that I had never, ever felt before.
Welcome to the Divine Hangout. I'm your host, Hillary Jubilee. It is my intention that when you listen to this podcast, you experience an increase in peace, abundance, and divine miracles in your life experience. If you love all things spirituality, wellness, healing, manifestation, and miracles, you are in the exact right place at the exact right time. Let's enter the portal together. Welcome back to the Divine Hangout. It is Hillary, and we are here today with Anja Werner. And Anja is an empowerment coach and a mother of twins, and I'm so happy that she's here with us today. So welcome, Anja. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Let us start with you telling a little bit about your history and your story, because it's a very compelling story. It's a really cool outcome, and I just would love for you to tell it here.
Okay. How much time have we got? I'll try to keep it short. So I was born in Germany, and at a time when Germany was still split into East and West post World War II. Depending on how much your listeners know about this situation, I was born into the East Side, which was occupied by the Soviet Union or Russia. And East German citizens were not allowed to leave. And they kept a very close eye on all the citizens. They had spies who would spy on people, put microphones in people's homes, a secret police. And everything was very regimented and rigid. And it wasn't a very good place to live. The economy wasn't good. There was no good job situations, opportunities for anybody. It was difficult to get fresh produce, just things, everyday living was really difficult there. So I was born, and let me just rewind a little bit. Before I was born, my father also committed suicide just weeks before my mother had us. And so that whole ordeal for her was extremely stressful, as you can imagine. The whole story is really quite mysterious with my dad. They were married at 21 years old, and he was kind of a genius. It always reminds me of, have you seen the movie A Beautiful Mind?
No.
So it's kind of very similar to the situation my dad was in. He was a really clever mathematician and really intelligent, and the Russians kind of pursued him to go on this secret mission, and he wasn't allowed to speak to my mom about it. But when the Russians asked you to do something, you had to do it. And he was sent away, and he came back 3 years later. And he was a different person. He was diagnosed with schizophrenia. He thought the postman was trying to kill him. He was delusional. When my mom got pregnant, he believed that we were not his babies. And then eventually it just spiraled downward, and he eventually committed suicide. And I believe that it was the pressure of the coming babies that he thought that he couldn't handle. So that trauma kind of downloaded directly into us when my mum was pregnant. The fetus is really sensitive to the mother's emotional state. And as a result, we were extremely sensitive babies. We never stopped crying. We couldn't deal with loud noises or new faces. And it was really quite, as you can imagine, a really difficult time for my mum. And by the time we were 3, she decided that she was going to try to secretly escape to give my sister and I a better life over to West Germany. And at the time, what you needed to do was kind of exit Germany through neighboring countries like Czechoslovakia, and those countries would kind of help East Germans to get across to West Germany. And we went to the embassy, and we were there all day talking to the Czechoslovakian embassy, um, which is known as Croatia now, by the way. And when we walked out of that embassy, this is my earliest childhood memory because it was so traumatic. I was 3 years old. We were arrested on the spot by the German secret police. They put us straight into a car and drove for hours us straight to a pretty serious looking prison. And I remember driving in there and just being petrified because there was barbed wire and there was soldiers with weapons, and it was terrifying. And then my mom, we were put into a room, and a few hours later, my mom came in crying hysterically. Just, I'll never forget her eyes because there was so much terror in them. And I realized that they had just let her in to say goodbye to us. And she wouldn't let go, and she had to get dragged out the door by these soldiers. And that was the last time I saw her for 2.5 years. We, sister and I, were put into um, an orphanage for children of criminals of East Germany. So it's almost like we got our own prison sentence as well. They didn't let us go back home. And during the time that we spent at the orphanage, we were told a lot of lies. I remember just feeling so alone and afraid, and I didn't understand why we were there. I thought that mummy didn't want us. They told us that they were sick. My parents were sick. Um, and eventually I stopped believing that because I asked this, for so many days, and eventually it became years. And what happens when a small child comes to a conclusion? They don't have rational thinking or critical thinking. They can't use that part of their mind yet. And so I basically made it about me. Like, I did something wrong to make her desert me. I did something, I'm not good enough to be loved. And eventually, my mum finished her prison sentence, and she had actually um, met somebody new that, so they were granted permission to go to the West, and they bought a house there. They set up everything for us to come back home. And, um, finally, we were reunited with our mom, and we were 5, nearly 6. And um, we thought, finally, we've got this new life. We're free. It's over. Everything's great now. And that was not to last. It didn't last very long. It wasn't long before the man she had met showed his true colors, and he was very jealous of my mom. He didn't really want girls. He wanted us to be boys. So I remember he would shave our heads. Um, I had a shaved head until I was 8 or 9. He would do weird things like make us do weights, and he would lock us in the attic overnight, and he would make us watch him abuse our mother physically. All of these awful things. And all I did to get through it is just dissociate and stay silent and hope to God that I wouldn't make him angry in any way. So that was very stressful because not only did I just come from a place where my world was filled with fear and uncertainty, but now here we were again, where our entire lives was, it was based around fear and horror and uncertainty. We never knew what we would come home to. We never knew when he would blow up. About it could have been anything. And when we were 9, my mom finally decided to leave him, and we just escaped one morning after he went to work. She came into our room and she said, "Pack your bags, we're leaving." And we knew exactly what she meant. We were packed within 5 minutes and we were gone. And we knew that he would never stop looking for us. He had guns in the house that he would threaten us with. We knew that he would probably kill us if he got the chance, if he ever caught us. And so it was terrifying time. We went into hiding for a little bit while we kind of recouped and decided what we were going to do. We went to a women's refuge, And eventually we decided to move as far away as possible, and we went to Australia. So that's where this this heavy Aussie accent comes from. And um, when we got to Australia, we didn't know how to speak English. Um, so that was scary, but we were so happy. It was scary, but we were finally free, right? And so there was so much relief and so much joy. And I remember making the decision that I was never going to look back, that I was never going to go into the past again. I wouldn't recognize it. I was going to avoid it, ignore it, and pretend it didn't happen. So at the time, that was a coping mechanism that I needed, right? Um, but that ended up really not serving me as I grew older. And what I was actually doing was just avoiding facing the trauma. But it got me through my teenage years. And, our teenage years were relatively happy. And it wasn't until later in life when I started to notice these really unhealthy patterns of behavior. But I'll stop there so you can ask me some questions because
That's a perfect segue. I was going to ask you if you had any either relationship issues or physical body manifestation issues that resulted from that trauma that you had to overcome.
good question. Yeah, this is an interesting, really interesting study when it comes to my twin sister and I, because we experienced the same trauma. And actually, the way the trauma manifested in our lives took on completely opposite manifestations. So for me, I had made the decision that no man will ever, ever do that to me. So all of my boyfriends, if they even like raised their voices, like they were gone. you know, I had no tolerance for any mistreatment whatsoever, and so I always had really good relationships, and in a way, I the way that it played out for me is I had a bit of a masculine wound where there was this dark underlying belief that all men were evil, and that didn't really uh, make itself like apparent to me until now, until very recently, like a few years ago. So back then, although I had good relationships, I always had trouble trusting them because I always thought that they were behind the scenes planning to like hurt me or cheat on me or something. And it was just this like underlying sense that they were bad and not good. So that's definitely how that played out. But my sister had string after string of abusive boyfriends, and she still does to this very day. So that's it's difficult for me to watch, and I understand where it comes from. And the good thing is, actually, that now that I'm a coach, I'm actually like working with her to help her work through that, which is, I mean, the most meaningful thing for me in the world. So we'll see how we do with that.
Amazing. Okay, so thank you for sharing your story, by the way. So you were a designer at one point, a graphic designer, is that correct?
I was,
Okay. And
yeah,
so how did you come from like, was that in Australia that you were a graphic designer, or are you already in Canada?
both. Yep, I was still a designer and illustrator here as well.
Okay. Yeah, I really love, just side note, I love your Instagram. The way that it looks is just on point. So I just wanted to say that. Um, so so how did you come into the work that you do now as an empowerment coach from graphic designer to, kind of like spirituality? Like how did you come into this work?
Yeah, it's like a complete 180, isn't it? Um, I inherited my dad's talent. So my dad was an artist, and so it just always came naturally to me. And spirituality and interest in the mind um, was present since I was very young when I found out my dad had died. Now, my mother didn't tell me that until I was 15. So I didn't know that my father had died. I thought the man that abused us was my father until I was 15. So when I found out that about my father and that he was mentally ill, I became really, really interested in the mind, and especially like mental illness and trauma and that sort of stuff. But I really enjoyed drawing and illustrating, and that was kind of like my passion. And so I pursued that. But in the background, like there's always been this part of me that has been deeply spiritual. But I pursued a career in graphic design, and I, I could say that part of my success came from the perfectionism that I developed because of my trauma. And I was actually watching an interview the other day where somebody said a lot of trauma survivors become really successful at their careers because they have something to prove, because they're perfectionist. And that really resonated with me because I really became this high achiever. I was always busy. I was winning awards. I was doing all this stuff and like feeling really confident in what I was um, doing really good at it. And it was great until eventually it started to kind of burn me out because I would, the design industry is very demanding of your time, where it's full of deadlines. And if there's a deadline that needs to be met and you have more than like too much work to do to meet that deadline, you're going to work through the night. You're going to do whatever it takes to meet that deadline. And that eventually really like wore me down. Uh, and I started to feel quite burnt out in that position. But the real shift didn't happen until I had kids. I became a mom. And something strange happened when I had twins. I had girl twins, which was, I mean, the chances of a girl twin having identical twin girls are, second to none. So I felt so lucky and so blessed to have these beautiful little girls. And all of a sudden, all of these things started to surface within. Like my anxiety got really out of control. Um, my world seemed like everything just felt incredibly hard, and not, everything felt off. Um, I was really tired. I was feeling like depressed, really overwhelmed, really unfulfilled, really unhappy, all at the same time. And I could tell something was seriously wrong. I just didn't know what was going on. And eventually I was like, okay, I need to go see a therapist. I need to seek help. And she ended up helping me to understand that very often what happens is when you become a mom and you have children and you were a survivor of childhood trauma, those children can spark or trigger memories that were kind of hidden away in your subconscious. And for me, I'd been pushing those memories away since we landed in Australia. When I made that decision, I'm never, ever looking at those memories again. And it kind of all made sense to me then that the reason everything was coming up was so that I could change it and that I could heal it. And I did not want to pass this trauma onto my children. And they were really the driving force to to help me to heal, right? I knew it had to stop with me. And with that realization also came the fact that I started listening to my body. And my body was like, you're not happy doing what you're doing. You're not happy in your career. Um, and around that time, I won like an international design award. And that was like, it should have been a pivotal step in my career. Like, this is like, you know, what I've been waiting for my whole entire life. And all I felt inside was like this emptiness. And I didn't care at all. It was so meaningless to me. And I thought, this whole career is meaningless to me. Because really, what I want to do is like impact people. I want to help people. Like, that's what really gives me meaning. And I just knew that, yes, I could continue what I was doing, but is being good at something, excuse me, is being good at something enough reason to continue doing it as a career if it doesn't fulfill you? And that's really the question that I realized I wasn't prepared to not be fulfilled, to not live a life that feels meaningful. And so the decision was really easy for me to make, actually, because I knew that that just wasn't the path. Now, at this point, I didn't know what my path was, but I knew what it wasn't was, so what it didn't was. So I, it was easy for me to say, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. Um, then making the decision to actually, uh, like, what am I going to do now was a little bit more difficult because I had no idea. But all I knew was that this new path that I was on, this new personal development path, and all the healing work I was doing, I was fascinated with, and it blew my mind. All the things that I was learning and how fast I was able to heal myself through, different tools and methods that we'll talk about. And I just thought, why did nobody ever tell me this? Why does nobody talk about this? Like, why do not more people know this? And I was like, this is it. Like, this is for sure what I have to do. I don't know in what capacity, but I'm just going to follow this passion and see where it takes me. So that's kind of how the whole career shift happened. And still to this day, I definitely don't regret that decision. It was the best decision I've ever made. And it's not a is this the right path for me. I have this inner knowing that, like, there is no question that this is the path for me,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Love that. So, I want to talk about meditation, and I want to ask you if you were meditating that whole time prior. Like, do you think that you had that inner knowing because you were already, like, were you already in a place of mindfulness and meditation, or no, you just had that intuition?
Yeah, so the intuition came from the meditating. So I never meditated before. In fact, I was one of those people that was really ignorant to the world of, like, personal development. I thought it was a joke. I was like, I don't need that. I'm so good at avoiding my trauma. I don't need that. And so I was like, I don't have time for meditation. And really looking back, I was just, I just didn't know. But when the girls were born and I was looking into ways to help me cope and help me heal, and I was working with a therapist, I knew I had to prioritize it. And honestly, it changed my entire life. It changed everything for me. Uh, because I use meditation for so many different things. Like, people sometimes think that meditation is so one dimensional, but it's not. It's not. It's kind of like this portal that allows you to open the gates to so many different areas of healing and of rewiring, and of expanding and raising your consciousness. That for me, like, everything that meditation offered me was something that I didn't realize I needed so badly in my life. Um, and it just, the biggest thing it did for me is it created this level of peace and comfort internally that I had never, ever felt before. And that was like mind blown, you know? It was like paradise. It was like I'd found heaven and I just wanted to go back there, like, every single day. It was so soothing and calming. So I really just fell in love with my meditation time and I looked forward to it and I couldn't wait to go there, especially if I'd had like a bad day or whatever. And it just became this tool that I learned to lean on for absolutely everything.
It's so funny because we we always the ego always wants like the next thing, and we're always looking towards like how can I be happy by getting this next thing that's over there, and like I'm over here and happiness is over there inside that thing that I need to get over there, and I'll be happy when I
Yeah.
get that thing.
Yeah.
It's so funny that you said like heaven within, because that's like the kingdom of heaven is already within you. It's like it's just the gold is just hiding in there. Like it just that's what meditation I feel is as well.
Yeah.
So can you, I loved the, I've heard you describe a simple way to begin with meditation. Could you describe, like, for people who are apprehensive or they're like, I don't have time to sit down and do nothing, or like people who are have resistance to it, like Can you just like describe like how you would get started with it?
Yeah. Okay. So I'll preface that with there is no perfect way to meditate. It's called a practice for a reason. And meditation is not trying to clear your mind of thoughts. So that's the other thing that I think people get put off by. Like, people are terrified of being alone with their thoughts. So um, a really easy thing for somebody who's never meditated before, and this is the way I began to, is just to set a timer for, like, begin with 1 minute and literally just sit and focus on your breath, nothing else. Um, just breathe in and feel the temperature, breathe out and feel the air, the breath, and just do that. The next thing you can do is like increase the timer for 2 minutes, and you could just notice. And really, that's all meditation is. It's a practice of just noticing, and notice if there's any thoughts that come up and watch them float away. Sometimes I'll meditate on a cloudscape, and every thought that comes, I attach that to a cloud and I just watch the cloud float on by, right? So that's a really simple way you can meditate. Um, there are so many different ways to meditate, but you have to find what's right for you. And if one way doesn't work for you, don't give up on it. Please don't give up, because there is a perfect way for everybody to meditate. My favorite way is visualization. And quite often, my heaven and my peace is a beach. And I just sit on the beach and I open my senses to everything that's there on that beach. So I'm feeling the cold sand between my toes, the waves coming up on my feet, the fresh air, the seagulls, the sunset or sunrise, maybe children playing in the background. So I'm just there enjoying the scene with all of my senses, and that's one way to meditate. So these are really simple things that anybody can do. Um, and start small. Don't try to sit there for half an hour. You're just going to be put off and you'll probably give up. So, really start small. The way that you build a habit is you make it so easy that it's a no brainer, and then you just build on that, right? So, that's what I would suggest for somebody who's never tried it before.
Awesome. What do you think? I know you said meditation changed your life, but what do you like? What exactly do you think it did for you? Like, what benefits does it bring?
Okay. So, I'm sure people have heard a lot of the physical benefits, like reduction in anxiety and stress, and benefits to the immune system, all of that. But for me, the biggest thing that it did is, first of all, one of the most important things that I think it brings is that it helps you become the observer. And by that, I mean it creates the separation that you need to be able to reject or reframe your thoughts so that they serve you better. So when you start to create enough separation between you and your thoughts, then you're able to become the catalyst for inner transformation. And because you're not identifying with your thoughts, you're not making those thoughts mean anything, you're not becoming the thoughts, you're actually just noticing them. And then you, from a place of your higher self, you can choose to either engage with them or not, right? And the moment that you become observing the thinker, like you are the observer and there's another part of you that's the thinker, then a higher level of consciousness is born out of that. And when a higher level of consciousness is activated within you, then you begin to realize that there is this like vast realm of intelligence beyond your thought or the world of thought, and that thought and the thoughts that you're thinking is only a tiny little aspect of that intelligence. And that may seem a little bit woo woo, but I'm just talking about expansion, like expanding your mind to the energy that's out there that your human senses can't really pick up. And when you do that, you just become a lot more aware of your own behavior, and you have a lot more power to then make the changes that you need to transform yourself.
I love that. Thank you for explaining that. Okay, so what is your favorite healing modality besides meditation? I know that you're certified in EFT, hypnosis, CBT. So, what's your favorite modality?
Okay, I mean, oh, it's so hard to pick just one. Um, for me, breath work has been extremely healing in my life, and I use it a lot with clients. And hypnosis. So like I couldn't really choose one out of those two, but those two are so powerful in their own separate ways. Um, breath work is a somatic practice, and it works with your nervous system. So it's a really good practice for anxiety, which I still suffer from today, and obviously am a lot better. But I do breath work every single day to keep that under wraps. It's really good for trauma survivors as well. And it just overall, everybody should be doing breath work, even if it's just like in the morning when you wake up, take a few deep, slow breaths, and there's nobody that can say that that's not beautifully cleansing and refreshing. So, that, and of course, hypnosis is my favorite tool for subconscious reprogramming. So, removing those blocks out of your subconscious mind that are keeping you stuck in life and keeping you playing small. So that's really my specialty for women that I work with. I make them all their own hypnosis that they listen to, and we do hypnosis sessions. And words are powerful. They're your subconscious mind thinks in words and pictures. So it's a really, really powerful modality.
I love hypnosis and breath work. It's awesome.
I know.
Um, I heard you talk about on one of your Instagram posts that self discipline is self love. And I wondered if you could dive into that a little bit.
Yeah. Self love, it's almost like the term has lost all meaning nowadays because self love is just so out there. And to me, self love, because self love really was the very first thing I had to learn on my healing journey. It was the very first thing that my therapist asked me when I told her. I sat in there and spent 20 minutes telling her my entire story and complaining about how I was just feeling so anxious, and I like I can't get over the anxiousness, and I feel so like pent up all the time and activated. And she was silent throughout this whole thing, and then she stopped and she said, "What are you doing for yourself?" And that question was so profound to me because I immediately went, "What do you mean myself? Like, what do you mean?" Like, that had never even crossed my mind. I had never thought about myself or what I should be doing for myself. And it was this breakthrough moment of like, wow, I guess I should be doing something for myself. And I've been like abandoning myself my entire life because I was ignoring and avoiding the trauma. So, um, learning to love myself was the very first thing. But the thing was, for me, that did not consist of like, you know, uh, uh, all of the regular learning to love myself. It was a very difficult process of being disciplined at first, like putting habits into place that were going to get me out of the situation that I was in, making sure that I was like exercising every day, so that I could release those feel good chemicals. And that was hard for me. Exercising, was a chore, but it was in the name of self love that I had to learn to do that because I wanted to honor my needs and I wanted to heal. And it was an act of self love for me to dive into my trauma and feel that pain. And it was an act of self love for me to be willing to do the work that I had to do. And all of that was not easy. So that's what I mean by that. Self discipline isn't easy, but it is an act of self love because there are some things that you need to do for yourself to help get better, to help transcend and transform and reach your higher potential. And the best way that to motivate yourself to do something should always be self-love. I'm doing this because I love myself. I'm doing this because it's the most loving thing that I can do for myself. I'm eating healthy not because I want to, but because I love my body and I want it to be healthy.
Beautiful. Okay, so I want to ask you about creation. So, when you want to create something in your life or manifest something in your life, um, do you have any type of process or tool that you like to go to for something that you want to create for your future?
Yeah, definitely visualization. So meditation. I mean, I feel like meditation is going to be the answer to most things you ask me, but for manifestation especially, meditation puts your body into this deep state of rest. And when you're in that state, you're not stressed about the future or the pain of the past. You're just present. And when you are present in meditation, your body is being flooded with these chemicals like dopamine and serotonin. And the biggest thing that happens when you meditate is you feel good, and that raises your energetic frequency. And we know that manifestation is all about raising your energetic frequency. So it's a game of energy and it's a game of feeling good. And so meditation does that. It creates not only the physiological shifts in your body by changing the chemistry in there, but it changes your energetic signature as well, or it raises your vibe, your vibration. Um, and that's the perfect combination for manifestation. And mix that with putting a picture in your mind of what you want. So visualizing what you want. Um, I mean, it's the perfect storm because your mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined. So imagine what you want, what you desire, and really get in there with all your senses. Like you can imagine feeling and hearing and smelling and seeing. So make what's in your mind as real as possible every single day in a relaxed meditative state, and that to me is the most powerful manifestation tool by far. So the way that I do this is, you know, I actually do this every day because I'm always manifesting something. But before I go to sleep, I always spend 10 minutes just visualizing my life, my desired life, my dream life. And I just watch myself, flying first class on an aeroplane and like walking along the beach in the Maldives and like taking all these vacations and seeing my family in Australia more, and all the things that even little things like shopping at Whole Foods, the supermarket I'd love to shop at every day. Make it personal and just imagine those things and make them real in your mind and stay consistent. This has to, you have to tell your mind you want this every single day.
So beautiful. I love all of that. Is there like an example of your favorite thing that you intentionally manifested and you like visualized and then came to fruition? Like, is there one example that you could give that you're proud of?
Yeah, yeah. This house, this house was the first time I intentionally tried manifestation. It was the first time I decided I'm going to see if this can work. And it was actually right at the beginning of my healing journey because I remember I was still working with my therapist. But you know, I had read all of these books. I was like diving into all of these books and I was like just blown away by what I was learning and I was absorbing a lot of information at the time. And what I actually did was, first of all, I didn't tell my husband about this because I didn't want that to interfere. I really wanted to see if like this is something that I could do. So I downloaded this little app called Mind Movies, and what it did was it allowed me to make a movie on my iPhone of like all the different aspects of my new life and what my house would look like, and what area it would be in, what I would do in the new house. And I made this movie and I watched that movie every morning and every night. And then I spent 20 minutes every night before I went to bed, listening to a meditation, um, and just visualizing the house. And I made up a movie in my own head of myself walking down the sidewalk, opening the gate, walking towards the house, the key, opening the door, seeing, my sister there who lives in Australia right now, but seeing her there and having all our family together, and me, what I would do in the morning when I woke up, and having my morning coffee and running the trails, because I wanted my house to be in the forest and in the mountains, and I would be running the trails, and it would make me so happy. Like, this was such a happy process. It was so feel good, because I would get excited, like, wow, imagine this could actually exist. Like, imagine if I could just, like, on my lunch break, go and, like, walk the forest trails. Like, that would be amazing. And I did this for about 3.5 to 4 months. So it wasn't fast. It was a long
That's pretty
time.
fast, I say.
Yeah, you think? I mean, nowadays you hear people like, oh, manifest this in like 2 weeks or like 3 days, But I I stayed the course, and I really committed to this. I was really, really committed. And about 3.5 months later, my husband was like, now at the same time, because my therapist had prescribed hiking, because I had said that that was like something that lights up my soul, I had been doing more hiking around the area that I wanted to live in. And my husband was like, um, I think we should sell our house one morning. Just completely out of the blue, completely out of the blue. And I was like, really? Really? I was like, of course, like, let's do it. I'm ready. And um, from there, it was so fast what happened next, because we made the decision, and we had planned this family trip a few weeks later. And we thought, well, why don't we put it on the market while we're away, and the realtor can and show people through while we're away, and then it'll be easier that way. And so we did that. And the day we got back into the house, we sold it. Like, it was, there was like, it was, the process was so easy. Like, it was effortless. And sometimes I don't like that word, because that gets thrown around a lot, but it really was effortless. And suddenly our house was sold, and it was like so surreal to me. And immediately, um, we both knew where we wanted to live. We agreed on that, because we always wanted to move here anyway. And I walked into this house, and I immediately knew it was it. Like, there was no question about it. You have that feeling. And I just knew it was my house. And it, uh, it was way above budget, and I had to, pull a few strings, and then unexpected money. Like, the way this all came together, we didn't have the money to pay for this house. And then the money came in unexpectedly, and everything came together, and we got the house. Like, it was, and that really made me believe in the power of manifestation. Like, there was no doubt in my mind that, like, I had made this happen. I'd manifested this, and I was so proud of myself for committing. um, and I will say, you do have to stay committed to the process, and also you have to keep the faith. Like, there was never a moment where I questioned, you know watching this mind movie and manifesting every single day. That can get hard, because life happens. And but there wasn't ever a point where I was like, oh, it's not here yet, and getting frustrated. Like, I was just enjoying the process so much. I loved my time of imagining my new life. It was so fun. And I think that's really important, when you manifest, is to really trust the process and never question. Like, let it be just this fun thing you're doing on the side. Let it be this fun commitment to your future, and just like, immersing yourself in the fun and excitement of that. And that's what it should be about, like, making you feel good in the moment, instead of worrying about when it's going to happen or how it's going to happen.
Did you end up telling your husband after the fact that you had done that?
I did.
What did he
I did.
say?
He he was like, "Oh, really? That's awesome." But he doesn't know much about
Okay.
manifestation. Like, he hears me talk about it a lot, and my passion really, uh, he he loves how passionate I am about it. But I mean, to him, it was kind of like, okay, well, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're gonna run out of time, so I'm just gonna ask you a couple last questions here.
Sure.
Could you tell us about a book that changed your life?
Yeah. So when I think about that, it was actually the very first book that I ever picked up and read. And it was called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza. And I will say, it's a bit of a heavy read if you've never read anything about spirituality or anything before. But I'm a self proclaimed science nerd. So for me, it was like the perfect combination of a lot of really, really quite heavy science, but also like amazing, amazing transformative information about how to, I mean, the book title says it all, like how to break the habit of being you. And I picked the book up because that's what I was trying to do at the time. And it just spoke to me. And I mean, if you know Dr. Joe Dispenza, his work is absolutely incredible and amazing. And reading this book opened my mind and heart to like this entirely new world that I had never even been aware of before. Like it actually blew my mind. Um, so it completely changed my life. That's what began this whole course of events. Really, it began with that book.
I absolutely love Dr. Joe Dispenza. Yeah, he's amazing. I'm
Yeah.
obsessed.
Yeah.
Obsessed with his work. Um, okay, and could you tell us about like one thing that you learned along your spiritual journey thus far? Like if you could give advice or like what's one really powerful thing that you learned along your journey?
Yeah, I mean, so many spiritual learnings along the way. But to be honest, I mean, the simplest of all, and it may sound a little cliche, but I'm going to speak from my experience here, was that um, everything I need is already within me. And the reason why that was so important to me was because my entire life I looked elsewhere to for things that would make me happy. I looked elsewhere and outside of myself for things that might help me feel calm and peaceful inside. Um, and it, I avoided looking within. I was too afraid to look within. And once you know that is the case, once you really truly know that everything you need is within, you are an ocean of love and peace inside. And if you do not feel love and peace inside, then somewhere in your life, you have been separated from love, you've been separated from peace because of something in your life is not aligned. Um, and for anyone listening, like if there isn't, if you're not connect that ocean of love and peace is there. It's absolutely there, present within you, and all you need to do is actually learn to access it. And what blocks us from it is all of these false beliefs that we learned along the way in childhood, and these false identities of who and what we think we are. And it's not until you start peeling back the layers of self judgment, self criticism, all of these, like you start doing shadow work, things about yourself that you despise and that you avoid and hate. It's not until you turn towards those things with love and with acceptance that you realize that there is more than you could ever imagine that you can access within.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. So if people want to work with you or find you, where can they do so?
Just over on Instagram, it's Anja Werner. That's my name. So check it out. Everything you need is right there. And at the moment, I am doing one-on-one coaching. It's my favorite style of coaching because healing takes time, and we really go deep. Uh, when I coach women, we really go deep. We go deep into the subconscious work, deep into the trauma healing. I call myself an empowerment coach because my coaching really is all about removing all of those blocks that stop a woman from being who she wants to be, doing what she wants to do, and having what she wants to have. And there is so much empowerment in that. So one-on-one right now, but I am working on something really exciting that's going to be a little bit more accessible coming up later this year. So stay tuned for that.
Amazing. Love that. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Hillary. It was so much fun. I loved it.
Awesome. Bye.
Bye.